All right, we'll get started now. We're a few minutes after 12. Welcome, everybody. We are live today with David Feeks at the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm. And we've recently received quite a few inquiries. That's been a hot topic that we're going to focus on today. It is hot here in Acton, Massachusetts. And we are going to talk today about short-term guardianship and what that means for those of you that are watching, what it means as far as in the process of estate planning. But we know that if you have questions, you can put them in the comments and we'll have David answer them. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to ask David to tell us a little bit about what is the easiest way to understand short-term guardianship as far as for those of us who have little ones and children that we need to protect. So David, we're glad you're here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for joining us today. So here's what you need to know about short-term guardians if you're the parent of a child under the age of 18. And in thinking about short-term guardians, here's what you're thinking about. You're thinking about what happens to my kids in the period of time, however long it is, between the time something happens to me and the time my long-term guardians can arrive and take over. So think for a second about who you've chosen as long-term guardians or who you would choose as long-term guardians if you haven't done that yet. And then think about where they are, and think about where your kids are, and think about that period of time in between. So for an example, when my wife and I, when our kids were still young, we used to go out on a date night every week, and we would have our reliable teenage babysitter come over every week. And she would take care of the kids while Paul and I went out to dinner and a movie, something like that. Now, one day I realized, probably while Paul and I were having a conversation while we were out supposed to be having fun, what would happen if something happened to us on the way home? Would our babysitter know what to do? And what would happen during the period of time it would take my sister, my brother-in-law to travel to our house to take over the care of our kids? Now, my brother-in-law and my sister lived in Connecticut. They were about 2.5 hours away. And I knew that if there was ever a police officer on my front doorstep, that wasn't going to be a good scene, that our babysitter wouldn't know exactly what to do. They wouldn't know who to call. And I knew there was a possibility that the Department of Children and Families could get involved in my kids' lives because there was going to be at least this 2.5-hour gap, even if everybody knew exactly what to do. And so I knew that in my plan I had to fill that gap and make sure that that could never happen. Because I knew as a dad that if my daughters were ever removed from my house and placed in the hands of strangers, that would be so upsetting and so confusing for them in an already upsetting and confusing time. I said, I can't let that happen. Paula said, I can't let that happen. And so we made sure that that would never happen. And now we've built that into every single one of our clients' plans as well. So what I want you to think about is who's at home with your kids when you are not, or where your kids are during the day when you're not with them. If you're a dual income family, where are your kids during the day while you're both working? And what would happen if something happened to both of you and your spouse, and your kids were in the care of someone else? And by someone else, I'm generally meaning not a family member. So if your kids are home with a babysitter, or if they are with a daycare provider, or if they're with a caretaker, what would happen? And what you want to make sure is that the people who take care of your kids know exactly what to do if something happens to you. And that's where short-term guardians comes in. Because what you should be thinking about doing is making sure there are people who are very close to where you live who can come over and take care of your kids during that short-term time frame. In other words, they are people who can fill the gap between the time something happens to you and the time your long-term guardians can arrive and take over. They usually look like your friends, your neighbors, family members who are not so far away from where you live. We generally recommend 15 or 20 minutes away from your house. So again, friends, neighbors, family members if they live close to you. And you can give those people legal authority to be with your kids and to stay with your kids until your long-term guardians can arrive. And what that means is if anything ever happens to you and a police officer does show up on your front doorstep, you know that your kids aren't going to be removed from your home because you've got these people who live right around where you live who can come right over and be with your kids as needed. Now, the important part of this planning is making sure that your babysitter or your caretaker or your caregiver knows exactly what to do if something happens while you are away. And so for our clients, we create what we call caregiver instructions or babysitter instructions that, gives your cell phone numbers, the names and the telephone numbers of everybody you've chosen to play this important role, these short-term guardians, so your babysitter or your caregiver would know who to call if there was an emergency. We create for our clients what we call a family emergency ID card. While I'm talking to you, I'm going to pull mine out of my wallet and show it to you so you can see what it looks like. It's just a card that says, I have young kids at home, and there's mine because I still have a 15-year-old at home. It just says, these are the people who have authority and instructions regarding the care of my kids. These are the people you should call. That way I know if I'm ever in a car accident and somebody is going through my wallet to find my ID, they're going to find this card as well. They're going to know I have an under 18-year-old at home, and they can be calling the people on my list who can go right over to my house and be with my younger daughter until my sister, my brother-in-law, can drive up from Connecticut and take over her care. So I know I've got that all taken care of. My clients know they've got that all taken care of. You can know you've got that all taken care of too. Here's how. It's by getting those short-term guardians in place as well. Now, some of you who are watching this today are thinking, short-term guardians, I don't even have long-term guardians named. When we work with families, we create for them what we call an overall kids protection plan, which helps you to name long-term guardians and these short-term guardians. It allows you to know that you've got these ID cards in place, you've got the caregiver instructions, and you've appointed the right people, the people you know and trust, to care for your kids in that short term and also the long term. So if in listening today you are thinking to yourself, oh boy, this is something I don't have in place, and this is something I think I really need to have in place, don't hesitate, don't wait, pick up the phone, give our office a call, and we can show you how you can get a kids protection plan in place for your own family. Office phone number 978-263-6900. Ask for Paula. Paula can help you get all set up so we can get that in place for you. In the meantime, any questions, put them right in the comments below, and we'll continue to come back and answer questions as they pop up. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. Hot day outside, hot topic as Deb said. But we want to make sure for all of the families out there that you get this piece taken care of, because this is the piece that's so, so important for your family.
Right, great. Thanks, David. We had quite a few viewers today. We're happy about that. If you found value in David's Facebook Live today, we do hope you'll share it with friends and family who might need a short-term guardianship plan as well, maybe a long-term plan for their family. We will be back live the last Tuesday of August with another probably hot topic again. And in the meantime, we will also post one of our recent blogs about the health app that people can access on their smartphones, where they can list in case of emergency numbers as well, because
Absolutely.
We all have our phones and we all need to make sure that emergency responders, the first responders, know who to contact in case of emergency. So thanks, David. Thanks for everyone watching. Have a great day and stay cool, everybody.
Take care, everyone.